Hey everybody, welcome into To The Point. Hope we're all doing well. Back after a few days. Haven't had a voice last few days. Just there's this cold going around. Not like I was that sick. I didn't have a voice, but it's back, and I'm thrilled to be back here on the air with all of you and to chat about all the things in the world of sports. And there's a lot to get into. Still haven't talked about NBA free agency, so that's on the docket today. Going to talk about Wimbledon and the craziness of the first 4 days and the matches or lack thereof. Some Major League Baseball thoughts. Start to preview UFC 290. Lots of NHL players are filing for salary arbitration, which those hearings will take place from July 20th to August 4th. So we'll be waiting on that and so much more. But I'm going to start today with baseball. Because I'll tell you, I was watching the tail end of Blair and Barker the other night, which is a radio show on Sportsnet. It's a good one. I think they do a good job. I like Jeff Blair as crusty old man. I think he does a very good job of it, and Barker is good comic relief. They were on, I was getting ready to watch Shohei Ohtani pitch for the Angels, which is another story we'll get to. But in the midst of that, it's breaking news, kind of a news dump before the Blue Jays game against the White Sox. Alek Manoah will return to the big leagues and pitch tomorrow night against the Detroit Tigers. I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. This was about a week and a half after he pitched in the Complex League where he gave up 11 2/3 runs. He had a start in Double-A where it was lauded as a great start, 3 walks, 5 hits. But now he's back to the big leagues. I thought it'd be another month. Maybe it would be longer because we had not seen much strides. Everything we hear is negative, not positive. But Alek Manoah is back. So here's what I'm thinking. This better work. And to me, this decision is as big a decision as Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, that tandem has made since arriving in Toronto. Since usurping Alex Anthopoulos as the decision makers, I don't know if they've had to make a bigger decision, if they've had a bigger call. Because Alek Manoah was pitching in the All-Star game last year. The All-Star game's Tuesday. He won't be there. He was not an All-Star. He's not close. They had to get rid of Donaldson, get rid of Tulowitzki, break up the core that got to back-to-back ALCSs. Big decisions there. Give money to Kevin Gausman. Give money to George Springer coming off the Houston debacle. They had some decisions. And the team's been a good competitive team since they've arrived. Since the lean years, they've been a very competitive team. But to be competitive moving forward, they need pitching. They need pitching, and if they want to battle with the Houston Astros, if they want to beat the Tampa Bay Rays, if they want to compete in their own division, pitching is what's going to get them there. But to me, Alek Manoah looks like a guy that's leaking confidence, that is out of shape, that is not really set for the new pitch clock, the new rules of baseball, and it's hurt him. So what happens now? He was down there for a month. I saw the videos of him. He looks like the same guy. What's the rush? Yes, it puts a strain on the rest of your pitching staff. I get it. You don't want to have bullpen starts because then you have Gausman on short rest and you have to make decisions. And it hurts your bullpen for the long run. But if you when they bring him up tomorrow and he starts, and let's say he has a bad outing and he doesn't even go 3 innings, what then? What's the solution then? Because you can't keep him in the majors. because he gets shelled again. Okay, you have the All-Star break as a buffer. But I don't know what the next move is. What's the next move on the chessboard? You've had the bullet of we send him down to the complex league. He's pitched in AA, but now he's back in the majors. Can you send him back to Florida? Is that a solution? I don't know. I just look at this and go, why rush it? And in particular, why before an All-Star break where your arms are going to get rest? Your arms are going to get a rest because everybody gets days off. You play till Sunday, then you don't play again till Thursday. Maybe the Jays don't play till Friday. So every starting arm will get a break. To me, this is a rushed decision. Kevin Gausman has been phenomenal for the Blue Jays all year. Chris Bassett has had his rough points, but he's been pretty damn good as of late. Barrios and Kikuchi have been okay. But the best thing the Blue Jays can say is that their starting pitchers have been healthy. If Alek Manoah was any good, they wouldn't have had a starter miss a start this year. They haven't had a guy go on the IL, which is a good thing because they have no starting pitching depth, which signals why Manoah is being recalled because they don't want to keep having bullpen days. He better be good. The confidence from baseball people has to be this guy is going to be awesome on Friday night. After the All-Star break, he will be back to being Alek Manoah. That's the good point of view. That's how you look at it and say, this is how we're going to sell it. This is our best case scenario. If it doesn't happen that way, good luck. Because I don't know what happens after that. I really don't. What's the solution? What's the next move? Hyunjin Ryu is pitching in the complex league. He's going to be back maybe by the end of July. He could have been an option for the Blue Jays. He could have had a start for Manoah in the rotation after the All-Star break. What are they going to do with him? Is he going to be in the bullpen? Maybe. If Manoah's any good, if Manoah's a good starting pitcher, maybe that's the solution. Do you move Kikuchi to the bullpen? You're in a position where you kind of know where your team is. You're in the American League East, and you're fourth. You're 9.5 back at the Tampa Bay Rays, who have struggled over the last month. They've been adequate for the first time all season. But you're a 1.5 back of New York, and you're 4.5 back of the Baltimore Orioles in your own division. In the wild card race, you were a 1.5 out of the third and final wild card spot, trailing the Yankees. So you're not in a horrible position, and I would argue you know your position. Behind the Blue Jays, the Boston Red Sox are not a playoff team. They're one game over 500. They've been competitive to this point. They've had their injuries are starting to pile up. They're not a great team. I'm going to skip the Angels because I want to talk about them in more depth in a second. Seattle, who hosts the All-Star game, one of the most disappointing teams in baseball. They can't score. Julio Rodriguez had a down year. Teoscar Hernandez hasn't been a great trade. The rest of their team, it's not there. This team isn't that competitive. Cleveland might make the playoffs, but in their own division, because the division stinks. Detroit, no. The White Sox, no. So you're battling with Houston and with the Yankees for a playoff spot. And to me, the Toronto Blue Jays are a better team than the New York Yankees. They just are. And this year, expecting expecting to win your division is going to happen again. So you're going to be a wild card team. Can you get back into the mix with the Baltimore Orioles? Maybe, but that would require you winning games in your own division, which they haven't done all year. 0-7 against the Red Sox, losing record against the Orioles, losing record against the Yankees. So it's about the long-term stability of your team, but it's also about the long-term stability of Alek Manoah. This season is really important for the Blue Jays. I'm not arguing that it's not. It's an important year for Ross Atkins as general manager to see success. If the Blue Jays miss the playoffs this year, he will likely be fired. Shapiro likes him, and they've worked together for a long time, so maybe that'll keep him employed. But I think that'll be a big-time failure for this team if they miss the playoffs. And in particular, to see 3 teams from your division make the playoffs and you miss, it's a tough pill to swallow. But I don't agree with this decision. To me, it's rushed, it's panicking, and if it doesn't go well, what then? Maybe if you want him to start the first game out of the All-Star break, okay, might still be a little rushed to me. But on the 14th, that's the Blue Jays' first game back, which is a week from tomorrow, against the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's a tougher start. They're a better team. But that might make it's another week to work on things, to work on mechanics, to have another start in Double-A. Then he comes back for the sprint to September. 2 months and change left in your season, and you press. You have him back with your starting rotation. Maybe Ryu is back by this point, and you make a decision on him where you want him to be in your lineup, and you have your team, and you get ready for the trade deadline, and you evaluate where you are over the next couple weeks. That makes more sense to me. But they went against that decision, that logic. All I gotta say to them is good luck, because this better work or you're in trouble. You just are. But the Blue Jays have a doubleheader today. They got rained out in Chicago last night. It was 6:10 start of the first game with Jose Barrios on the mound, and then Yusei Kikuchi will pitch at 9:10 in the second half of the doubleheader. Also Tuesday night, I'm watching Angels-Padres. Shohei Ohtani's on the mound. Anytime he's pitching, I'm watching. But the night before, there's an injury. And it's to Mike Trout. Mike Trout swings, takes a ball, hurts his hand. He is out 6 weeks. Meaning he'll miss the entire month of July, and he'll be out until the end of past the trade deadline. Also, then Tuesday night, second at bat of the game for Anthony Rendon. He fouls a ball off his shin. He goes down. He leaves the game. This is Anthony Rendon, who's missed over 120 games over the last 3 years. He's an injury-plagued guy since winning the World Series in Washington. He's gotten a lot of money and hasn't been available for the Halos. So he's injured. Then, wouldn't you know it, Shohei Ohtani has a blister. He has to leave his start. Unknown when he'll pitch again. So 3 injuries in 24 hours for the Angels. And we're less than a month away to the trade deadline, and they are 4 games out of the final wild card spot. Whew. They're having such a great season. They're ahead of the Blue Jays. Shohei Ohtani's leading the league in homers, which he still is. He's pitching fantastic, which he still is. Trout's not having a great year, but still they're playing incredibly well. And they're winning. But now they sit here July 6th, and they're only a game above 500. And they've lost 3 straight to the Padres, and they start a series tomorrow against the Dodgers. Woof. So the trajectory for the Angels is not good. They're banged up. They're leaking confidence. And there's the elephant in the room, or the elephant across the world of pro sports, Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is the most coveted baseball player. And this isn't even hyperbolic. You could argue in the history of the game. There has never been anybody like him. Babe Ruth has not done what Shohei Ohtani did for the length of time, hitting and pitching at the same time, at the rate that he does it. As we stand, Shohei Ohtani is the American League MVP. But he's never played in a playoff game in his career. You could argue he's never been in a playoff race in September, August. And as they're leaking oil, and as you look ahead of them, the Blue Jays are better, the Orioles are better, the Yankees are better, the Astros are better in their own division, and Texas is better in their own division. So, what do the Angels do? If I was the general manager of that team, there's 2 options. I'm signing Shohei Ohtani this month if I can. And you might think, well, he wants to test free agency. Okay. If the Angels offered him 10 years, $600 million today, do you think he would take it? $60 million a year to remain in Anaheim. If that's what he's going to get in the open market, I think he's going to get 500 to 600 million. I think it's realistic he gets 600 because he does both. You get the largest contract in the history of pro sports outside of Ronaldo playing in Saudi Arabia, and that's a whole other kettle of fish. But in North America, he gets the biggest contract. If the Angels, option 1, offer him the deal. I'm sure they talk contract, but say, hey, we love you. We want to build a contender. It's been tough this year, but let's keep you in Anaheim. We know you love the Heat. Who doesn't? 10 years, $600 million. And if him and his representatives come back and say, we don't want to sign a deal for the trade deadline, we want to hit free agency, we want to see what's out there, then to me, I trade Shohei Ohtani. I trade Shohei Ohtani for a couple of reasons. I look at the Ohtani and I compare it to the Bedard situation with the Regina Pats. If you're not familiar, the Regina Pats had Connor Bedard. He played this year, was the captain of the team, CHL Player of the Year. But they held on to him at the trade deadline. They did not trade him, and it was perplexing to me. And they kept him because they viewed and they valued gate revenue, ticket sales, over the prospects, over the pieces they would get for Connor Bedard. They made the playoffs. They lost in 7 games in the first round. Woof. So they got 3 games of gate revenue for that series. Not worth it. in my opinion. Again, I don't own the business. Yes, they would have sold out. It would have helped across the league, but I'd rather try to win a Memorial Cup in the next couple of years, which their chances got lower by not trading the most valuable asset in the CHL in a very long time for incredible pieces. So if I'm the Angels, you hold on to Shohei. Okay, it's great. Yes, people will come to watch him. People go to watch him in Anaheim. You love it. So in 2022, the average attendance at Los Angeles Angels games was 30,339 people, which is pretty good. That's pretty good for Major League Baseball. This year, the Angels rank 11th in attendance. So their average per game is 32,796. So it's up from last year. Now, is that up because you want to see Ohtani? Or is that up because the team's competitive? To me, a competitive team signals getting to the ballpark. First are the Dodgers. Second are the Cardinals. They're the anomaly. People love baseball in St. Louis. The Cardinals are pathetic. I don't know if you've seen the play that ended the game last night where the Marlins walked them off. Third, the Yankees. Fourth, San Diego. Philadelphia, who are starting to come on if you haven't seen them. The Atlanta Braves, best team in baseball. Houston, the Toronto Blue Jays, Mets. So it goes down from there. There are good teams that have shitty attendance. Arizona is 20th. Baltimore is 23rd. The Miami Marlins are 29th. The Tampa Bay Rays are 27th. And they got good teams. But getting 32,796 people a game is pretty damn good. And here's interesting. For the road, the Angels average 30,574 people. Why? Because people want to see Shohei Ohtani. I did it last year. I went to Fenway Park. My father and I watched him pitch. It was one of the best experiences I've had watching a sporting event because the dude's a freak. And Fenway's awesome. But yes, you value those numbers. But Angels fans have to be looking at it saying, we're coming to this ballpark, we're supporting the team. Artie Moreno is trying to sell the team, couldn't do it because he was wanting too much money. And now, where do we go? Now what happens? We're showing up, we got this team. I want, as a sports fan, I'm not a fan of any team, but I used to be. I don't care about the attendance. I don't care about the menial things. I want to win. I want to win if I'm a sports fan. I want my team to be competitive. I want my team to be at least make the postseason so I have a thought of winning. Leafs fans have suffered forever, but at least over the last 5 years, you're in the postseason. You have a kick at the can. You have a chance to make history. The Angels have made the playoffs once in the last 12 years. Mike Trout's made the playoffs once in his career. Think about that. That is so perplexing, and it's so crazy that the best player of his generation has played in 3 playoff games and he got swept in a best-of-5 series. Now, the Angels have had this team for a while. Mike Trout, Ohtani, and you put players around them. You don't spend any money on pitching, and you expect different results, and you're not going to get it. I would trade Shohei Ohtani. The New York Yankees would love him. They want to be in a position. They need a pitcher because they do need pitching towards the back end of the season. Clean out their farm system. Clean out their farm system of every good prospect that they have and bring it back. It'll never be worth it. But what if you trade him and then you re-sign him? What if he goes to the Bronx and he hates it? Doesn't like where he lives, doesn't like going to the ballpark there. Fans aren't as nice as they are in Los Angeles. I don't know. The weather in September, October isn't that great, which it won't be. Maybe he'll see the grass isn't always greener on the other side. He gets to go play in the playoffs. But he goes, maybe I'll go back to the Angels. It's where I was meant to be all along. I'll go back to Los Angeles and play there. Maybe not, but maybe. Or you do a wink wink, Aroldis Chapman style. We're going to trade a bunch for you. And we'll bring you back. So that when you come back, the team's better. Which the Yankees were after they traded him to Chicago Cubs. He wins a World Series, and the team's more competitive the next year. They have options, but holding on to him to keep attendance numbers, to keep fanfare, for people that just, for talk shows, sports radio, well, Shohei Ohtani's a Los Angeles Angel. Okay, you have that for 2.5 months. If that's your plan, you have him for 2.5 months, then he hits the open market, then he's gone. What did you accomplish in that 2.5 months? Okay, he's on your team. Great. We get it. He'll have an Angels jersey at the All-Star game. How many people are watching the Major League Baseball All-Star game? Not me. Yes, there's nothing else on, but there's streaming services, and how many is the Major League Baseball All-Star game going to be a huge hit? I doubt it. So you see the injuries piling up. This is when you have to start having discussions on what's our best solution. What's the best way forward for our team? Do we want to continue to push for the playoffs? If we have a really good series this weekend against the Dodgers, are we back in a position where we can push for that final wildcard spot? Is there any way that we can shift it and look at ourselves in the mirror and go, you know what? We can finish higher than the Blue Jays, Yankees. I don't see that. Even if Mike Trout was healthy, quite frankly, I don't think they'd end up higher than the Blue Jays. As much as the Blue Jays have their problems, which they do. They're not a perfect team. Alek Manoah was in the complex. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. couldn't hit a home run for two months. He's hitting them now. Their pitching's starting to come together. They're in a better position than the Angels. He's a phenom. He's fantastic. But sometimes you got to make a trade for the better of your team. The Oilers traded Wayne Gretzky. They still won cups. Maybe the Angels get a bunch of really good prospects and they're in a better position. And maybe Ohtani returns and goes, holy shit, these prospects are good for the Angels. And I got to compete. Now, you don't want Shohei Ohtani to be a Dodger. I get that if you're Artie Moreno and the Angels. But if you don't move him and he goes to free agency and he walks to the Dodgers for nothing, that's the worst possible situation. That is by far worst case scenario. I don't want that to happen. I don't want him to go there, first and foremost, but I also don't want him to walk there for nothing. So they have some big decisions to make moving forward. There are 4 days until the Major League Baseball All-Star break. And as we get closer, to me, the biggest story of the last couple of weeks, the Houston Astros. Haven't been following Houston. Yordan Alvarez is injured, not playing. Kyle Tucker was out for a period of time. You look at this roster, Altuve's missed a large chunk of the season, and yet they are 2 games back behind Texas for first in the American League West. They've had the most most rookie starting pitcher innings this season of any team in baseball, even more than Oakland. And yet here they sit in a really good position. Corey Yolks has had to play in right field, kind of an unknown guy. Yainer Diaz, young catcher, only 24, gets brought up. He's been great. Jeremy Pena has been okay, but he's starting to find his life again after winning World Series MVP. Dubon has played a lot of second base with Altuve out. He's looked good. Their bullpen with Abreu, Presley continues to shine. They're without Lance McCullers Jr., who's out for the season. Justin Verlander left in free agency. He's now on the Mets. But to me, the Astros are still the sleeping giant in the American League. Texas has been great all year, and they remain great. They're 51-36. They're not in a risk currently to miss the playoffs. But to me, Texas has to be looking at themselves going, we've had a fantastic year. Fantastic year. And we're only 2 games up. Corey Seager's going to the All-Star game. Jonah Heim's going to the All-Star game. Young's going to the All-Star game. And Houston's right on our tail. We have no breathing room. That'll be fascinating to track down the stretch, especially when Yordan Alvarez comes back into that lineup and Houston is whole. And I expect them to do something at the trade deadline because they know that they can win again. What else in Major League Baseball has interested me? Well, the Marlins they're currently in the midst of a 4-game series with the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals are beyond done. The Cardinals are pathetic. They're not turning it around this year. 35-51. But the Jordan Hicks error last night was one of the worst errors that you'll have to go watch it. But the Marlins, Luis Arias has slowed down. I mean, he's batting .384, but he's slowed down a bit. But Benny De La Cruz, new left fielder called up. Garrett Cooper's DHing. He's good. Yuli Gurriel. And Sandy Alcantara, who was the National League Cy Young last year, has close to a 5 ERA, and this team just continues to win. Small ball. They don't hit a whole lot of home runs, but they put balls in play. And the Marlins would be even better if they were in the same division as the Braves. The Braves have 58 wins. They're 30 games over 500, the Braves. But the Marlins are 3.5 games up on the Dodgers for the first wildcard spot, if you can believe it. They're a legit team. They're a fun team to watch. And Philadelphia, another team, they have found it. They've won back-to-back over the Rays. They had a slow start. They had some injuries, but I never gave up on this team. I thought they'd turn it around. Trey Turner had a slow start. Bryce Harper was hurt. JT Realmuto had a slow start, but Taijuan Walker went 7 innings last night. Aaron Nola had a rough go, but he had a gem. He had 12 strikeouts, Tuesday night against the Rays. To me, the Phillies are getting healthy. This is when they started to play their best baseball last year. They were in the World Series. And they're in the third wild card spot currently, and they're tied with San Francisco, and they're only a game up on Milwaukee. But I like their position. They're not going to catch Atlanta. They know they're not going to win their division, but they didn't win their division last year. They played Atlanta in the postseason. They beat them. And that will be the goal of all these teams this year. Is Arizona better than Atlanta? No. Is Cincinnati, great story, continues to win. Ella De La Cruz doing awesome things. And Cincinnati's quickly one of my favorite teams to watch. Yeah, they're great, but are they better than the Braves? No. De La Cruz 3 for 6 last night with a homer. Joey Votto 3 for 5 with a homer. They're great. They're awesome, the Cincinnati Reds. But the entire season, these teams will be trying to be better, trying to get onto the level of the Atlanta Braves. And it only has to come in October. But looking at this upcoming trade deadline in a couple weeks, teams have some interesting decisions. We talked about the Angels. What about San Diego? They're 6 games back of the final wild card spot. 6 games back. And this is after winning 3 in a row against the Angels. Fernando Tatis Jr. has been great, actually, since coming off his suspension. But Machado has his worst average at this point of the season of his career. They're playing Gary Sanchez every day at catcher after he's been DFA'd twice in his career. Their pitching has been really inconsistent. Blake Snell is starting to pitch well. Joe Musgrove, but do they have enough time to make it up? Can they catch Philadelphia? Do the Dodgers fall off? Because they're injury plagued as well. They've been hammered with injuries. Does the Marlins' great story come to a crashing end? I don't know. But if the Padres are out of it, and the Mets, they have to think long and hard about their future. 2 of the highest salary teams in baseball, and you look around and you go, well, look at this team. Do you trade Juan Soto? They'd have a year of control next year, but the Nationals got a haul for him. San Diego could deal him, and I think teams would call on him. Josh Hader is one of the best closers in baseball. I think they'd get calls on him. There'd be others, but those are the 2 biggest names that come to mind. Teams that could use a corner outfielder, Juan Soto playing left field for their respective team. Everything that comes to mind is the Dodgers, of course. They've done it in their version on the cheap this year. They got David Peralta, Jason Hayward, and Outman playing in the outfield most nights. They do have Mookie Betts on the team, but he was playing second base last night. Jason Hayward's been better than I think they even expected, especially at his age and the way he played towards the tail end in Chicago. Could they use a corner outfielder? Yeah, I don't think they want to trade Juan Soto to the Dodgers in division. That would hurt. Would Atlanta splurge on a Juan Soto? Anthopoulos likes to die, but I think that would be a stretch. Would the Yankees, if you can't get Shohei Ohtani? How about the Mets? They're technically in a worse spot right now because they're in a tougher division. They're 18 back of the Atlanta Braves for first in the National League East. Give up on that dream. Making the playoffs will be difficult enough. They're 6.5 back currently. They are 40 and 46. they have a worse record than the Chicago Cubs and the Pittsburgh Pirates. And oddly enough, they play the Padres this weekend, which is fun. But you get two of the oldest pitchers in baseball. What teams want them for a playoff run? Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. Teams call on Pete Alonso. He's got a year of control after this one before you have to decide to give him a long-term deal. He can still hit home runs. He's got 25 homers in 78 games with 58 runs batted in. But has he had a good season this year? No. His average is .214. I mean, he's getting close to the Mendoza line. Last year, he hit .271 with 40 homers, 131 runs batted in. Season prior, 152, .262, 37 homers, 94 runs batted in. So a drastic drop-off. He's hitting homers or he's not making contact. Jeff McNeil, who led the National League in batting average last year, is batting batted .326 last year. He's batting .256. What a drop-off. But the Mets have relievers like David Robertson, who would be coveted because he's pitched in the postseason. He's won a World Series before. Maybe Starling Marte would be a corner outfielder teams would covet. But they got a lot of money that they're spending to be a below average team. The Mets are, so their 26-man payroll currently, they're spending $261 million this year to be 6.5 back. Oh, and they got more than that. And they got $30 million on injured reserve. So they're almost at $300 million, their payroll this year, to miss the playoffs. Yankees are then San Diego has they're $200 million, 26-man payroll, $30 million in injured reserve. So they got $230 million. Phillies are just into the playoff hunt. They're fourth. You have the Dodgers, and then you have the Angels, who are 6, followed by the Blue Jays. You look at Atlanta, they're in the top 10, and Texas, but again, they're not spending anywhere close to these top teams. Then you see, this has got to make people crazy. Baltimore, 29th in payroll. They spend $48 million. They are top wild card in the American League. Miami, 22. They are spending $68 million this year, which is the most the team's ever spent. First in the National League wildcard. Tampa Bay spending $64 million this year, 28th in payroll. They currently have the best record in baseball, even though I don't think they are the best team in baseball. So it's crazy. But for Steve Cohen to look at his team and for San Diego to say this is the position we're in, we're in this drastic of a spot that our team is horrible. We're underperforming. Nothing's going well. We have to make decisions. Just like the Angels. Sometimes it's as simple as shedding salary. Fans don't want to hear it. You don't like to see the white flag giving up. But owners don't want to spend that much money if they don't have to. Justin Verlander's got a year after this. Could they get that off their books? Would a team take that on? I don't know. I don't think it's an easy sell. He's a 40-year-old pitcher. He's had injury woes. Yes, he won the American League Cy Young last year. He was great. But I think if he had a 1-year deal, it'd be an easy trade. I think teams would take Justin Verlander. Houston might take him back, for Christ's sakes. But you have that other year that he's going to play. So if Houston did want him back, well, Houston's not going to make that trade because they're not going to pay him for another year. They have the rotation. They're moving in new pitchers, and that's what Houston does. They have their system and how they play baseball, and it works. We like our pieces. They could have kept Verlander. They offered him a contract, but they wouldn't go over a certain amount, and Steve Cohen and the Mets would give him $40+ million a year. They wouldn't. So that's why pitchers like J.P. France is pitching for Houston as a rookie. He's getting reps. That's why Christian Javier was in the bullpen last year and he came back into the starting rotation. Framber Valdez is their ace. It's a staff that doesn't have a whole lot of pedigree when it comes to historically, just historical numbers, but it's a good one. But they're without Luis Garcia, who is a starting pitcher. He's done for the year. They're without Jose Urquidy. They're without Lance McCullers Jr., who's also out for the season. So to me, they need help. They could use an arm. These teams that are at the bottom have arms that can help these respective teams. Seattle's 5 games out. They made the playoffs last year. They beat the Blue Jays in that best of 3. To me, they viewed themselves coming into this year as a World Series contender. And it's been a colossal disaster. Robbie Ray was done for the year. He's a horrible signing. We knew that was going to happen. Marco Gonzalez, starting pitcher, he's on the IL. Luis Castillo's been very good, but again, he's not getting run support. Would they trade George Kirby, who's been a really good starting pitcher as well? Pitching's not their problem. To me, they want to try to compete down the stretch. What did the Cubs do with Marcus Stroman? He's been as good as you could ask him to be this year. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, Marcus Stroman. But the Cubs have Justin Steele, who he is 9-2 this year, 91 innings pitched with a 2.56 ERA. He's bounced around a bit, been really good, and he's 27. And they have Marcus Stroman, who has about a similar ERA to Justin. Cubs are 6 games out. They're not going to make the playoffs. They are 7 back in their division. But they have 2 pitchers that can bring them back a lot. And Marcus Stroman wants to re-sign with the Cubs. I understand that. But I think Marcus Stroman's also a competitor. If he could be traded, you get a bunch back, re-sign with the Cubs in the offseason. Have that contract in a drawer. Go pitch in the postseason for Houston, potentially, for the Dodgers. Who the hell knows, for the Yankees? After being a Blue Jay for so long. He's already pitched for the Mets, so he knows what it's like to pitch in New York. And come back. And we're a better team next year. You sign a new deal, we get some better prospects, and we're in a better position. And the best thing about the Cubs and about these teams that are on the fringes, but they decide to sell off, you know going into every year, your division stinks. American League Central, the National League Central. In some respects, the National League West, because San Francisco won it 2 years ago, and now the Diamondbacks are on the cusp of winning it this year. It's a revolving door. Things change. Things happen. It's baseball. Crazy stuff happens. Somebody's elbow blows up, and before you know it, they're back in the swing of things. National League East is tougher because you have the Braves sitting there who are a giant. And they've been consistently great for about 5 years. But the Central, American League East, but the two Central divisions and the AL and NL are as wide open every year as you want it. You never know who's going to win those respective divisions. Milwaukee was the betting favorite to begin the year, but Cincinnati has come on. They've recalled tons of players who have been great. The Baltimore Orioles have called up I saw this, Jeff Passan tweeted this last night, 9 players from AAA that now play regularly in the last year and a half. It's crazy. Their farm system has pushed out great prospect after great prospect. So it's, the world's your oyster for these teams. But it's looking at your situation, looking at your team, and how can we improve it? It's a risk trading away a player because that new team might offer him a new contract that's better, or they might want to hit free agency because they don't know if they want to be in a situation that was not competitive the year before. But to me, Marcus Stroman loved pitching in Toronto. And now he played for the Mets. And now he's pitching for the Cubs. The Cubs are the most famous franchise in baseball. He's pitching at Wrigley Field. There's not much of a bigger spotlight. It's important to be good in Chicago. Yes, it took them 108 years to win a World Series. But they don't want to go another 108 without winning one. It's been 7 years since they won a World Series in 2016. Rizzo's gone. Javi Baez has departed. Chris Bryant is in Colorado making way too much money. Can we build this back up? Baseball is becoming interesting again as we get closer to the trade deadline period and as we get into the meat of the season where these games become more and more important and these decisions become more and more important for these teams. For the Angels, for the Blue Jays, for the teams that are on the outskirts. For teams that make trades, how do you improve your team? Because looking at this year, the barometer starts with the Atlanta Braves. It begins there. Can you get by them? Now, the playoffs in baseball are weird. Sometimes it's just a pitching matchup. Somebody's no good. But the Braves lost in the first round last year. I don't think they're happy with that. They are first in runs per game, first in homers, first in average, and first in ERA in Major League Baseball this year. And fun enough, they got a series against the Rays this weekend. That's fun, down at the Trop. With Matt Olson with 29 homers, Ronald Acuna Jr. batting .337 with 41 stolen bases. The dude's a freak. Spencer Strider's got 10 wins. And they get 2 starting pitchers on the IL. Imagine when they get healthy, this Braves team. And to think they might add at the trade deadline just to get a little bit better. But we'll continue to track baseball as it moves forward here. I haven't discussed NBA free agency yet. And I have some thoughts. First off, I love what the Lakers have done. This free agent period, there wasn't a whole lot of huge names. It was kind of like the NHL where you like some players, but there's no real game changers. But the Lakers came into free agency after getting to a conference final, but getting swept by Denver, knowing that they needed to get better in order to beat them. And to me, they did. The first big thing that happened was that they re-signed Austin Reeves. for 4 years, $56 million. I thought he would get offer sheeted. I thought that he would want more money. Now, $56 million is nothing to sneeze at for a role player, but it's the NBA. We'll talk about salaries in the NBA in just a second. He's making $14 million a year. He might make more than Austin Matthews this year. He'll make more than the best player in the NHL. Just think about that for a second. But they get him at that number. Keep him in the starting rotation, playing with LeBron, with Anthony Davis. They bring back D'Angelo Russell, 2 years, $37 million. They have their point guard. Check. They signed Gabe Vincent from the Miami Heat, 3 years, $33 million. A good contract, it was just the right amount of money. He comes in after getting to a conference final and an NBA finals the last 2 years. He's been in these big games. He's been in these moments, and he's a gamer. Did he play great all the way down the stretch for the Miami Heat? No, but I don't think he'll be asked to do as much in Los Angeles. He could be a bench player for all we know. They re-signed Rui Hachimura, same deal as Austin Reeves. A little more money than I would have given him, but he played really well in the postseason. He can play those minutes. You don't have to worry about that. Jackson Hayes comes over from New Orleans on a 2-year deal. Some depth at the big man position. They had Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish. I just look at this team. LeBron, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Vincent, Hachimura, Hayes. They have so many options. They can go really deep into their bench. And one of the biggest reasons they lost to Denver was a better team, for sure. But to me, LeBron ran out of gas. He was exhausted. He didn't have the stamina. He didn't have anybody to help him. But now you have Vanderbilt. You have LeBron. Reeves. All these guys that can play. Scottie Pippen Jr., Taurean Prince, Austin Reeves, Cam Reddish, D'Angelo Russell, Vanderbilt, Tristan Thompson, AD. Is it a better team than Denver? Their starting five won't be better than Denver, but Denver's problem might be their depth. Bruce Brown left, and he is now a member of the Indiana Pacers. Took 2 years, $45 million, got a huge contract. I don't blame him. Just won a ring. That's what you do. But he was a big reason why they won. Christian Brown will be asked to do more on that team. They don't lose any of their starting five in Denver, but to me, the Lakers have improved on depth, and that's a huge way to win now. The Phoenix Suns are trying to tell everybody, well, we got really good depth. I looked at their acquisitions. They're not as good as the Lakers. To me, the Phoenix Suns with Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, sure, and you have DeAndre Ayton, and they added Jock Landale, and they have a decent team. Don't get me wrong. But I don't like it as much as the Lakers team. Torrey Craig is gone. I liked him. They had Drew Eubanks. Okay. Damian Lee is a guard. TJ Warren's still a free agent. They added Yuta Watanabe, who played for the Raptors, played in Brooklyn. I like him as a fit. But I don't think they're as deep as the Lakers. I don't think they're better than the Denver Nuggets, just head on. So to me, the Lakers weren't going to get a superstar. They have two of them. They have LeBron and they have Anthony Davis. So when you have a team that has two star players already, you need to fill the gaps with really good players around them. And I think at this point, LeBron needs players that can carry their own weight in big moments, because he can't be asked at 38 years old to be the superstar all the time. Can Austin Reeves hold his own water? We'll see. I think he can. Gabe Vincent can bring the ball up the floor. Taurean Prince plays good defense. They all bring something different to the table. So to me, the Lakers are building a team that can compete for a championship. They're building a really good team around LeBron, which is exactly what the doctor ordered. I want to talk about the teams I think did really well just about competing before I get to kind of big money deals. Dallas Mavericks. They brought back Kyrie Irving, 3 years, $126 million. This was something they had to do, and this is something that was always going to happen. It was rumored Kyrie was going to meet with the Phoenix Suns. That wasn't going to happen. They couldn't afford him. Dallas was the only team that could give him a max contract, which was the 3 years, $126 million. So that meant he was only coming back to Dallas, $42 million a year. So he comes back to Dallas to play with Luka Doncic. We get it. They bring back Dwight Powell, who's been the center there for the last couple of years, 3 years, $12 million. I looked at Dallas the first couple of days and I go, okay, you missed the playoffs last year. You don't have any really depth at the big man position. They haven't had a great big man since Luka got there, really. I mean, they had Porzingis for a minute, but he's not a traditional center. He's a power forward. So what is Dallas doing? They traded away. They got rid of Bertans at the draft, which was good. Christian Wood is a tweener. They still have Tim Hardaway on the roster they'd like to get rid of. I don't love the team. Derek Lively was a good draft pick, but again, I don't love this team. They did improve their team yesterday, however, when they did a sign and trade with the Boston Celtics for Robert Williams. It says Mavs, Spurs, and Celtics are finalizing a 3-team trade. This was Shams Charania yesterday. Mavs get Grant Williams, Spurs get Reggie Bullock, and a 2030 unprotected Dallas swap. Celtics get multiple second-round picks. Grant Williams wanted too much money, and the Celtics couldn't afford him, so he goes to Dallas. He's a good player, not a great player. I wonder what his role will be in Dallas. I assume he'll be a starter on this team. Kyrie, Luka, Seawood. I don't even know. I still think they got to find a way to build this team and who's going to be on the floor at the right time. I don't know if the pieces are all going to fit. But he plays tough defense. They added Seth Curry, which I like. He can shoot. She had some shooting there. But Rob Williams is a competitor. He's been in big games. Is he perfect? No. And he'll upset people. He'll be frustrating at times. But I don't mind the Mavericks getting, because I think they needed somebody like Robert Williams, some annoyance, somebody to get that compete level up. Because Kyrie and Luka, I think, can get a little complacent in Dallas. Kyrie can make anybody go haywire. Robert Williams can bring them all together, at least bring some toughness, some emphasis into that team. And Boston really had they could have used them, certainly, but with the way their salary was looking, they got to pay Jaylen Brown this summer. It just makes it that much more difficult for that to happen. But I like that Dallas has done this. I just think their team is weird, and the West is really tough. Golden State re-signed Draymond Green, 4 years, $100 million. They let DiVincenzo go to the Knicks, so they lose some depth there. My thing for Golden State is Chris Paul is 38. Steph Curry is 35. Draymond Green is 34. Klay Thompson is 34. If the team sounds old, it's because it's old. It's a young man's game. And Golden State has had a great run. And I'm not doubting Seth Curry's shooting ability because that'd be stupid. I'm not doubting Draymond Green's defense. It's always been great. But it's an older group. Kevon Looney will be on the team, and you love him. He's been there for a long time. He's played really good. Iguodala is retired. Gary Payton is back. He's had injury problems. I think he's an older 30. Moses Moody, what is he as an NBA player? To me, it's an old group. It's an old team in a young man's league. And to me, Chris Paul would have fit in a lot of locations. Golden State was not one of them. And I agree with bringing Draymond Green back. To me, he's the nucleus of that team. And to be competitive at all, you needed him. But Jordan Poole is a younger player. He doesn't fit with Draymond. They hate each other, but would he be better than Chris Paul on that team? Probably. Because of his shooting, and do they really need Chris Paul to bring the ball up the floor all the time? I don't think so. So it's a strange outlook of that team. These are all Western Conference teams I've talked about so far. But Denver was always the team at the top. They were always the flag bearer. They set it. To me, Golden State has not gotten to their level yet. Dallas has not. They've added Grant Williams, and it looks like they're going to sign Matthias Thybulle to an offer sheet from the Portland Trailblazers. Portland will have 2 days to match it. See if they do it or not as they go through some drama, which we'll get to here in a second. The Clippers added Westbrook, maybe the lad James Harden. They added KJ Martin via Houston. The Memphis Grizzlies, no John Morant, but they added Marcus Smart. They re-signed Desmond Bane. These teams will be good. I just don't think they'll be great. That's my outlook on them. Other teams have spent big money. Houston Rockets. They've had high draft picks over the last couple of years. Jalen Green, formerly KJ Martin. But now the Houston Rockets hit with Sengun, a big center, Kevin Porter Jr., Jamari Smith Jr., Kenyon Martin Jr., a lot of juniors, Amen Thompson, who they just drafted, Cam Whitmore. And they've added Fred VanVleet to the mix from the Toronto Raptors. And Dylan Brooks, Patty Mills. Fred VanVleet going to the Rockets. He got a big payday. No doubt about it. He signed a 3-year, $130 million max deal, over $40 million a year to go to Houston. It was reported, I think it was Michael Grange from Sportsnet said that the Raptors just weren't willing to match that. It was too much money. I don't blame them. I wouldn't have matched that contract either. Good for Fred for getting the money. But he was just in a situation where he was with the Raptors, and they were never close to winning after winning a championship. I don't really know what the Houston Rockets are doing here. I don't know what their plan is. Denver, Memphis, a good Sacramento team, Phoenix, the Clippers, Golden State, the Lakers, Minnesota, who knows, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Dallas. Houston finished 14th in the West. last year. Tied with San Antonio for the worst record in the Western Conference. So, who are they going to be better than San Antonio this year? Yes, I think so. Will they be better than Portland? Yes, for multiple reasons. In particular, Dame is not there. Can they be better than Utah? Maybe. I do think Utah is a decent team with the collection of big white men they have down there. Can they be better than Dallas? Unlikely. Oklahoma City, New Orleans. I just look and you spend big money. You give Fred VanVleet over 40. You give they signed Dylan Brooks 4 years, $80 million, so over $20 million a year, which is a signing I actually do like because I think they got a really young team. They didn't play with a whole lot of purpose, a whole lot of emphasis. It's just playing and for the sake of playing. You don't have a strategy. There's no way to win. It's just, okay, you're going to have the ball this time. I'm going to have the ball this time. Let's see what happens. They needed some structure. They needed some of that. Dylan Brooks will come in and be a personality. But you're spending a whole lot of money to be a play-in team, to finish 11th in the West, to pick 10th in the draft. I just don't know what's on the horizon for the Houston Rockets. I don't know how many teams in the Western Conference they're going to be better than. Quite frankly, I don't see a path where they can finish 8th in the West. I find it hard to believe they can finish 9th. Better than San Antonio, yeah. Better than Portland, okay. Reaching better than Utah, okay. That gets you to 12th. Does New Orleans have another disastrous year where Zion Williamson is not on the court and something happens? Maybe, but even they didn't have Zion last year, and New Orleans, they still have Valanciunas, CJ McCollum, still have Herb Jones, still have B.I., Trey Murphy Jr. III, Alvarado. They still have a competitive team there. The biggest thing for Houston will be for Ime Udoka to get all of these guys to mesh. Because they have a lot of guys that like to play individual basketball. With Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., who's gone now, which actually makes sense. But Jabari Smith Jr. and Jalen Green in particular, they're the two focal points of the team, but they're two young guys that they don't know what they don't know. They got to figure out what they want to do. What's going to work? Who's the right piece? Who's the centerpiece? Each possession shouldn't just be, okay, your turn, my turn. Because Fred VanVleet's going to want the basketball. He's going to want to initiate the offense. Cam Whitmore's a rookie. How many minutes does he get a game? Dylan Brooks is going to be a starter on this team. So it's spending a lot of, to me, Ime Udoka in 1 year turned the Boston Celtics around. They became a really good team. He did not coach last year. How good a coach are you? Because this team has a lot of different personalities. It's going to be an interesting fit to see how it works and how good they are this season. Because they've had no expectations for a long time. They did the smart thing. I'd rather give Fred VanVleet $40 million than give it to James Harden. That wasn't a solution for them. So good thinking. But it's a lot of money to be average, to be play-in eligible. The Raptors, they re-signed Jakob Poeltl, 4 years, $80 million, so the same contract as Dylan Brooks. Signed Dennis Schroeder, likely a bench guard, but again, Fred VanVleet is gone, so who knows? 2 years, 26. They got Jalen McDaniels, 2 years, 9.3. Michael Grange reported last night, I woke up to this, that the Raptors may trade Pascal Siakam before the start of the year, which is interesting. All reports he wants to stay, a Toronto Raptor. He doesn't want to leave. But they may trade him just because the team views it as the best option. I don't disagree with the team. I do think it's the best option. But it's a big swing, for sure. It's a big decision to go down that road because he's your best player. You keep bringing back a similar core, expecting different results. I think it'd be smart to pivot. We'll see if the team does or doesn't. But they got some decisions to make, certainly, as we move forward here in Toronto. I apologize. Some Wimbledon updates came up on my phone, so I'll update you guys in a little bit here. Of those, Bianca Andreescu did win her first round match finally, so that's some news there. And I know Rebecca Marino, another Canadian woman, was playing this morning as well. She was in trouble as I came, and she did lose. So she's out in the first round. Bianca's through in her first round match. Leylah Annie Fernandez will play in her second round match today. But I do want to touch on a little bit of basketball before we get to tennis. A few things more. Desmond Bane, max contracts given out. Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. Desmond Bane, LaMelo Ball in Charlotte. Cam Johnson. Crazy money. Desmond Bane, 5 years, $207 million. I like the player a lot. He's really good. He'll never be the best player on a championship team. I don't know if he can be the second best player on a championship team, and he gets that amount of money. LaMelo Ball has been on a bad team his whole life. Part of that is his style and the way he plays basketball. Really talented player, but I don't know. The one that made the most sense to me is Anthony Edwards. To me, he's a superstar in the league. He's Minnesota's best player. He just has a lot of incompetence around him when it comes to teams making decisions on roster building, the trade for Rudy Gobert and where that team is going. Does Karl Anthony Towns get traded this offseason? Minnesota's a mess. They need to recruit draft picks, but they need to keep Anthony Edwards there in order to facilitate change and in order to get better over time. But here's the thing you notice now. For instance, I'll use Anthony Edwards. He's in Minnesota. The team's not going anywhere. They're stuck in the mud. We know who they are. And we think, that they'll be a decent NBA team for a number of years. But he signs this huge extension because they want to keep him in Minnesota. They don't want to let him walk. And in the NBA, you can make the most money if you stay with your original team that drafted you. So it makes sense for you to re-sign your first contract with that team. It helps keep lower level teams, small markets like Minnesota, keep superstars present. Zion Williamson in New Orleans, LaMelo Ball. You see these signings, this is what happens. But this is what's going to happen in the NBA, and it's starting to happen now. Players are going to sign this deal, and after that season, they're going to ask out. Bradley Beal did it last summer. We knew it was going to happen. Washington had a horrible season. He's in Phoenix. And it's a massive contract that they get less in return for Bradley Beal. So it didn't help the team at all, but it helped Bradley. Damian Lillard. It's a little bit different, but not really. He's played in Portland for 11 years. He's been to one conference finals. His best teammate might be LaMarcus Aldridge that he's ever played with. So he's played with below average talent. But Damian Lillard's wanted to stay in Portland throughout his career. He wants to stay loyal. But now he is okay with a trade. He's actually demanded a trade. He's asked to be moved out of Portland. And it's been leaked. He's only happy with a trade to the Miami Heat. Portland has paid Damian Lillard over $260 million. Damian Lillard does not have a no trade clause. So if I'm Portland, I do not care where Damian Lillard wants to play. I don't care what his wishes are. He will play where we trade him. We are sending him to the team with the best offer. Simple as that. Simple as that. You don't have a no trade. We paid you copious amounts of money. And here's the thing. The narrative is, well, Portland can't trade Dame somewhere that he hates because they'll get a bad rep and no free agent will want to play in Portland. Here's the rub. No free agent wants to play in Portland. Nobody. The people that want to live in Portland, Oregon are Phil Knight and Chael Sonnen. That's it. Nobody else digs Portland. Nobody is going to Oregon. Nobody's craving out playing in Oregon. So no free agent is saying, number one on my list, Portland. Nobody has that opinion. Nobody will ever have it. So it's not about the future. It's not about anybody thinking, we hate this Portland brass because of the way they traded Dame on the way out. Bullshit. You gave him copious amounts of money. You've done everything in your power to make him happy. Now, have you built a great team around him? No, but that's not about money. That's about your staff not drafting well, not finding great prospects. Those are two different things. Dame wants to play in Miami. He wants to play with Bam Adebayo. I get it. The Miami Heat were just in the NBA Finals with a bad team. Damian Lillard would make that team a hell of a lot better. And they lost Gabe Vincent. They lost Max Strus. So they need some help in Miami. But if the offer is Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and draft picks, why would Portland make that trade? You're doing Miami a favor. You're taking bad contracts. Okay, give us Hero, give us Duncan Robinson, draft picks, and you have to take Nurkic off our hands. That's not a great offer. Maybe he goes to Miami because they figure out a deal that works for both sides. But to me, the thought, well, we're going to trade into Miami because that's the only place he'll go to, is complete horseshit. No way, Jose. It's not. It doesn't make sense. To take a worse deal just to keep a guy happy? He said he'd be okay with playing in Brooklyn. Trade him in Brooklyn. They got better pieces. But to me, if he ends up in Boston and he doesn't like Boston, tough titties, said the kitty when the milk went dry. I don't care. Me personally, if I was Boston, I would trade Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard. Because I think they need a ball handler. Damian Lillard can dribble. He can do that for that offense and pair him with Tatum. You'd have Derek White, Porzingis. The team's going to be different, certainly. Because Smart is gone and Robert Williams is gone. Some of that toughness of that team, you need to find that. But that's something Boston should explore. Portland would get a really good player back, a better player than Miami has to offer, or Brooklyn. Let's say Cleveland found an offer. Okay, fine. We'll send you there. If Milwaukee found a way to do it, they're not going to, but if there was a way, I don't care that he doesn't want to play in another small market. That's not my problem. He was a free agent. He could have left in the past. He stayed in Portland. Why? Because he made the most money that he could make in his career in Portland. Because that's how the NBA structure works. Same thing with James Harden. If I'm the Sixers, I think James Harden's going to start the year on the Sixers. With Joel Embiid and with that group, I don't think he's going to be a Clipper myself. I think he's going to be in Philadelphia playing with that group. Because again, I'm not just trading him for expiring contracts. If the Clippers aren't willing to part with Terrence Mann, and you're only going to trade me Batum and Covington, screw that. I'm not taking your old trash. I'm not doing that. These NBA teams have decisions to make. But I don't expect this Damian Lillard deal to get done anytime soon because there's no rush. Portland's in no rush to get it done. You have all summer to weigh your offers and see what happens. But if anything happens, we'll talk about it here on the show. NHL news, not much in the last couple days. I mentioned salary arbitration. Vladimir Tarasenko has hired a new agent. He's still unsigned, so he is a new agent. Also, here's a new report this morning. Senators eyeing Tarasenko once DeBrincat is dealt. Bruce Garrick of Post-Media writes that the expectation is that the Senators can find a way to get DeBrincat and his $9 million salary off the books for next season. Ottawa could sign unrestricted free agent Vladimir Tarasenko. Garrick notes that the Anaheim Ducks and New York Islanders are among the interesting clubs, and notes and talks with Detroit Red Wings may have been revisited recently. It's a tough trade of DeBrincat. We've talked about that before. Dallas has no money. That's the problem. I think he'd be perfect there. But it's a tough trade to pull off. Any other NHL news today? Swayman, Samsonov are going to arbitration. Ryan McLeod in Edmonton. Michael Stone retired. He's going to be working player development for the Flames. Two-time Stanley Cup champion Patrick Hornqvist retired yesterday at age 36. Good career. Julien Gauthier, former Ottawa Senator, signed a 2-year deal with the Islanders. Flyers signed Victor Mete, 2-way contract. He'll play some NHL games next year. I haven't heard nothing new yet on Patrice Bergeron. I think that'll happen. I do think he's going to play again. That's later on in the summer. It's the feeling. Matt Dumba still on the open market. You got Tarasenko, who's out there. Still are some good players. I just think those guys are going to have to accept money that they're not all that happy with, maybe going into free agency, and hope to have a great season and come out on the other side and see what happens with them. Play with the team, hope to have a good season, maybe go on a playoff run, see what transpires. Wimbledon, crazy weather over the first 4 days. A lot of people just getting in their first round match today. We might actually see tennis on Sunday, which normally never happens at Wimbledon. But Denis Shapovalov is through to the third round this morning. He's looked good in his first 2 matches. Milos Raonic is on court 17 currently against Tommy Paul of the United States. Sasha Zverev is in control of his match. He's looking to win in straight sets, first round there. Andrei Rublev is in the 4th set. He's battling through. What else? Stan Wawrinka. Didn't expect to see him back. He's in the 3rd round at Wimbledon, really his worst major. Beat Thomas Martin Etcheverry this morning, who went to the quarterfinal at the French. So Stan Wawrinka into a 3rd round. Great to see him back on the tennis scene. Leila Anna Fernandez playing world number 5 Caroline Garcia currently. Let's see what else. Barbara Krejcikova is out, 10 seed. Kurmatova, 12 seed, is bounced. Karolina Mukova, who made the final at the French Open, is out in 3 sets in her first round match this morning. Sophia Kenin, who beat Coco Gauff, is through to the 3rd round. She's starting to see a comeback in her game. So there's a lot of tennis happening today, a lot of matches. They're hoping that the weather holds up for the entire day. But the rest of the day, you got some interesting matches on both sides. TFO's in action, Grigor Dimitrov, Daniil Medvedev, and on center court, you have Andy Murray against Stefanos Tsitsipas. That's by far the match of the day. Tsitsipas won 5 sets just yesterday, so he might be a little gassed over Dominic Thiem. Andy Murray won in straight sets. He looked good. On the women's draw, the rest of the day, you have Belinda Bencic, who's made a semifinal here, Jessica Pegula, and last year's champion, Elena Rybakina, who will be battling Elise Cornet. That was a lot of baseball and a lot of things to catch up on. Happy to be back tomorrow, Friday already. Preview of UFC 290, which is this weekend. We'll talk about all the big fights, everything to look forward to this weekend, and betting-wise, we'll get into that. We'll recap Wimbledon from today, talk about some CFL tomorrow, and any other news that comes our way here on this Thursday, July 6th. So happy to be back with all of you. Hope you all enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Till tomorrow, take care. This is To The Point.